Today I'll be reading to you from when Beowulf arrives in Denmark up until where he and Unferth have their conversation and finish their conversation with one another. So last time we left off, Grendel, he was harassing the Danes, killing them. Harrod Hall had broken apart in terms of no longer being the center of the community. Beowulf heard about how Grendel had been terrorizing them for 12 years, and so he set sail to Denmark to help them out. When the watchman on the wall, the shielding's outlook, whose job it was to guard the sea cliffs, saw shields glittering on the gangplank and battle equipment being unloaded, he had to find out who and what the arrivals were. So he rode to the shore, this horseman of Hrothgar's, and challenged them in formal terms, flourishing his spear. "What kind of men are you, who arrive rigged out for combat in coats of mail, sailing here over the sea lanes in your steep-hulled boat? I have been stationed as lookout on this coast for a long time. My job is to watch the waves for raiders, any danger to the Danish shore. Never before has a force under arms disembarked so openly, not bothering to ask if the sentries allowed them safe passage or the clan had consented. Nor have I seen a mightier man-at-arms on this earth than the one standing here. Unless I am mistaken, he is truly noble. This is no mere hanger-on in a hero's armor. So now, before you fare inland as interlopers, I have to be informed about who you are and where you hail from. Outsiders from across the water, I say it again, the sooner you tell where you come from and why, the better." Beowulf and his men, they disembark from their ship. This watchman on the shore approaches them and he says to Beowulf, "I have never seen a more impressive warrior than you." He knows nothing about Beowulf and automatically he's like, "You're like the best warrior I've ever seen in my life. However, I need to know who you are and where you came from." In other translations, instead of saying who you are, it says who your family is and where you come from. Because that, again, was more important to them than their actual name. Okay, who your family was, your family reputation was very important back then. And we'll notice in Beowulf's reply that he doesn't say his name right away. In fact, notice how long it takes him to actually say what his name is. The leader of the troop unlocked his word hoard. Okay, pause. That is my favorite caning out of this entire book. Word hoard means vocabulary. Right? Just like you're hoarding words that you learn, okay, to yourself, that's your vocabulary. The leader of this trip unlocked his word hoard. The distinguished one delivered this answer: "We belong by birth to the Gate people and owe allegiance to Lord Hygelac. In his day, my father was a famous man, a noble warrior lord named Ecgtheow. He outlasted many a long winter and went on his way. All over the world, men wise in council continue to remember him." So notice Beowulf does not say his own name. Instead, he says who his king is, Hygelac. And then he says who his father was, Ecgtheow. And he talks about how Ecgtheow was this famous warrior. Okay, people admired him all over the world. "We come in good faith to find your lord and nation's shield, the son of Healfdene. Give us the right advice and direction. We've arrived here on a great errand to the lord of the Danes, and I believe, therefore, there should be nothing hidden or withheld between us. So tell us if what we have heard is true about this threat, whatever it is, this danger abroad in the dark nights, this corpse maker mongering death in the Shielding's country. I come to proffer my wholehearted help and counsel. I can show the wise Hrothgar a way to defeat his enemy and find respite, if any respite is to reach him, ever. I can calm the turmoil and terror in his mind. Otherwise, he must endure woes and live with grief for as long as his hall stands at the horizon, on its high ground." Undaunted, sitting astride his horse, the coast guard answered, "Anyone with gumption and a sharp mind will take the measure of two things, what's said and what's done. I believe what you have told me, that you are a troop loyal to our king. So come ahead with your arms and your gear, and I will guide you. What's more, I'll order my own comrades on their word of honor to watch your boat down there on the strand, keep her safe in her fresh tar, until the time comes for her curved prow to preen on the waves and bear this hero back to Gateland. May one so valiant and venturesome come unharmed through the clash of battle." Notice the entire time Beowulf was talking to this watchman, he never once said his actual name. Okay. And yet, based off of where he came from, who his family is, and why he's there to help Hrothgar with Grendel, the watchman says, yes, I believe you. Yes, you can come see my king. So they went on their way. The ship rode the water, broad-beamed, bound by its hawser and anchored fast. Boar shapes flashed about their cheek guards, the brightly forged work of goldsmiths, watching over those stern-faced men. They marched in step, hurrying on till the timbered hall rose before them, radiant with gold. Okay, that's referencing Harrett Hall there, this great mead hall that Hrothgar had built and has gold on its rooftop. Nobody on earth knew of another building like it. Majesty lodged there, its light shone over many lands. So their gallant escort guided them to that dazzling stronghold and indicated the shortest way to it. Then the noble warrior wheeled on his horse and spoke these words. It is time for me to go. May the Almighty Father keep you, and in his kindness watch over your exploits. On my way to the sea, back on alert against enemy raiders. It was a paved track, a path that kept them in marching order. Their mail shirts glinted, hard and hand-linked. The high-gloss iron of their armor rang. Okay, a mail shirt is a kinning for chainmail. So if you have this version that I have, this picture on the cover, that's chainmail. It's the back of someone's head. But it was kind of like this protective armor that they wore back then. So they duly arrived in their grim war apparel and gear at the hall, and, weary from the sea, stacked wide shields of the toughest hardwood against the wall, then collapsed on the benches. Battle dress and weapons clashed. They collected their spears in a seafarer's stook, a stand of grayish tapering ash, and the troops themselves were as good as their weapons. Then a proud warrior questioned the men concerning their origins. Where do you come from, carrying these decorated shields and shirts of mail, these cheek-hinged helmets and javelins? I am Hrothgar's herald and officer. I have never seen so impressive or large an assembly of strangers. Stoutness of heart, bravery, not banishment, must have brought you to Hrothgar. The man whose name was known for courage, the gate leader, aka Beowulf, resolute in his helmet, answered in return. We are retainers from Hygelac's band. Beowulf is my name. If your lord and master, the most renowned son of Healfdene, will hear me out and graciously allow me to greet him in person, I am ready and willing to report my errand. Wulfgar replied, a Vendel chief renowned as a warrior, well known for his wisdom and the temper of his mind. I will take this message in accordance with your wish to our noble king, our dear lord, friend of the Danes, the giver of rings. I will go and ask him about your coming here, then hurry back with whatever reply it pleases him to give. We're introduced to a new character here. He is a Dane, and his name is Wulfgar. Okay, and he works for Hrothgar. He is one of Hrothgar's counselors, advisors. His name is Wulfgar. With that, he turned to where Hrothgar sat, an old man among retainers. Okay, so Hrothgar is not a young king. It says old man there. The valiant follower stood foursquare in front of his king. He knew the courtesies. Wulfgar addressed his dear lord. People from Gateland have put ashore. They've sailed far over the wide sea. They call the chief in charge of their band by the name of Beowulf. They beg, my lord, an audience with you, exchange of words and formal greeting. Most gracious Hrothgar, do not refuse them, but grant them a reply. From their arms and appointment they appear well born and worthy of respect, especially the one who has led them this far. He is formidable indeed. Hrothgar, protector of Shieldings, replied, I used to know him when he was a young boy. His father before him was called Ecgtheow. Hrethel the Gate gave Ecgtheow his daughter in marriage. This man is their son, here to follow up an old friendship. Here in these lines, we find out that Hrothgar actually knows Beowulf. He knew Beowulf when he was a child, and Hrothgar was friends with Beowulf's father, Ecgtheow. In a few pages, it's going to go into more detail about this friendship. A crew of seamen who sailed for me once with a gift cargo across to Gateland returned with marvelous tales about him. A thane, they declared, with the strength of 30 and the grip of each hand. Now holy God has, in his goodness, guided him here to the West Danes to defend us from Grendel. This is my hope, and for his heroism I will recompense him with a rich treasure. Go immediately, bid him in the gates he has in attendance to assemble and enter. Say, moreover, when you speak to them, they are welcome to Denmark. Not only does Hrothgar know Beowulf when he was a child, but he has heard about him in recent years as well. He's heard that Beowulf is a great warrior and that he has the strength of 30 men in each hand. It says the strength of 30 in the grip of each hand. That's a strong guy, okay, to have the strength of 30 men, okay, in each hand. Now, if you're thinking this is not the first time that we've heard the number 30 in the story, you are correct. Grendel, the first night that he attacked Harrett Hall, killed 30 men. This book does repeat numbers throughout the story, and 30 is one of those numbers that repeats. So if we have Grendel, who killed 30 men the first night that he attacked Harrett Hall, and we have Beowulf, who has a strength of 30 men in each hand, okay, what does that tell us about this battle that's going to take place between Grendel and Beowulf? I think it tells us that it seems like it's going to perhaps be a pretty evenly matched battle between the two. Neither one of them is what I would consider to be like a weak person. At the door of the hall, Wulfgar duly delivered the message. My lord, the conquering king of the Danes, bids me announce that he knows your ancestry. Also that he welcomes you here to Harrett and salutes your arrival from across the sea. You are free now to move forward to meet Hrothgar in helmets and armor, but shields must stay here and spears be stacked until the outcome of the audience is clear. The hero arose, surrounded closely by his powerful thanes. A party remained under orders to keep watch on the arms. The rest proceeded, led by their prince under Harrett's roof. I don't know why I can't say that word. Roof. And standing on the hearth in webbed links that the smith had woven, the fine-forged mesh of his gleaming mail shirt resolute in his helmet, Beowulf spoke. Greetings to Hrothgar. I am Hygelac's kinsman, one of his hall troop. When I was younger, I had great triumphs. The news of Grendel, hard to ignore, reached me at home. Sailors brought stories of the plight you suffer in this legendary hall, how it lies deserted, empty and useless once the evening light hides itself under heaven's dome. So every elder and experienced councilman among my people supported my resolve to come here to you, King Hrothgar, because all knew of my awesome strength. They had seen me boltered in the blood of enemies when I battled and bound 5 beasts, raided a troll nest, and in the night seas slaughtered sea brutes. I have suffered extremes and avenged the gates. Their enemies brought it upon themselves. I devastated them. Now I mean to be a match for Grendel, settle the outcome in single combat. Beowulf arrives. Okay, he goes before Hrothgar, and basically he gives Hrothgar his resume. It's just like if you were to apply for a job and you have an interview, you might go through your past experience, what your strengths are, so on and so forth. And that's what Beowulf does here. He gives Hrothgar his resume, but in a very boastful way. Is boasting bad if it's true? Not necessarily in their culture. So Beowulf doesn't just say, oh, hey, I'm a great warrior and I can definitely defeat Grendel for you. Instead, let's look at what he's done in the past. It says, I battled and bound 5 beasts. In other translations, instead of beast, it says giants. So we're talking big old monsters here. Okay, 5 of them. Raided a troll nest, and in the night sea slaughtered sea brutes. Okay, what they mean by sea brutes is not just like your average octopus or something. Okay, these are sea monsters. So think like maybe like the Loch Ness monster kind of a deal. Okay, a big old sea monster. Grendel, therefore, will not be the first supernatural creature / monster that Beowulf has ever defeated before. So this is a pretty impressive resume. And so my request, O King of Bright Danes, dear Prince of the Shieldings, friend of the people in the ring of their defense, my one request is that you won't refuse me, who have come this far, the privilege of purifying Harrett, with my own men to help me, and nobody else. I have heard, moreover, that the monster scorns in his reckless way to use weapons. Therefore, to heighten Hygelac's fame and gladden his heart, I hereby renounce sword and shield of the broad shield, the heavy war board, Hand to hand is how it will be, a life and death fight with the fiend. Beowulf says, look, I'm going to go like mano a mano, man to man with Grendel. I might have my guys help me out a little bit, but mainly it's going to be between me and Grendel. Furthermore, he says, I have heard that the monster scorns, in his reckless way, the use of weapons. So Grendel does not use weapons when he kills people. Beowulf says, therefore, I hereby renounce sword and shelter of the broad shield. Hand to hand is how it will be. So he says, if Grendel doesn't use weapons, I'm not going to use weapons. Okay, we're going to fight in hand-to-hand combat against each other. If you had this undefeated monster for 12 years, wouldn't you use every arsenal or everything in your arsenal to defeat him? Beowulf says no. Okay, hand-to-hand. Whichever one death fells must deem it a just judgment by God. If Grendel wins, it'll be a gruesome day. He will glut himself on the gates in the war hall, swoop without fear on that flower of manhood, as on others before. Then my face won't be there to be covered in death. He will carry me away as he goes to ground, gorged and bloodied. He will run gloating with my raw corpse and feed on it alone, in a cruel frenzy fouling his moor nest. No need then to lament for long or lay out my body. If the battle takes me, send back this breast-webbing that Wayland fashioned and Hrethel gave me to Lord Hygelac. Fate goes ever as fate must. Beowulf says, if I die, I die. Hrothgar, the helmet of shielding, spoke. Beowulf, my friend, you have traveled here to favor us with help and to fight for us. There was a feud one time begun by your father. With his own hands he had killed Hethelaf, who was a wolfing. So war was looming in his people, and fear of it forced him to leave. He came away then over rolling waves to the South Danes here, the sons of honor. I was then in the first flush of kingship, establishing my sway over all the rich strongholds of this heroic land. Harogar, my older brother and the better man, also a son of Healfdanes, had died. Finally I healed the feud by paying. I shipped a treasure trove to the Wolfings, and Ecgtheow acknowledged me with oaths of allegiance. Here in this paragraph, we get a little bit more background on how Hrothgar knows Beowulf and Beowulf's father, Ecgtheow. There was a term back in the day called a war guild, spelled Wergild, and war guild meant death price. If you killed someone, then you had to pay a death price, a certain amount of money, to that person's family. And by those people accepting the war guild, they were saying, we're not going to take revenge for our family member's death. This was a way to stop feuds back then, because there was so much fighting back then, and there weren't a ton of them. And so they didn't want these constant revenge feuds going on for years and years. So instead, they had this thing in their culture called the war guild, this death price. If you killed someone, okay, you pay their family the war guild, and the family would not seek revenge on you. The problem is that when Ecgtheow killed someone, the family refused to accept the war guild. Ecgtheow had to flee because the family came after him. They wanted to kill him. Ecgtheow fled to Denmark, where Hrothgar is king. And Hrothgar acted as like this in-between between Ecgtheow and the family of the man he had killed. And Hrothgar ends up negotiating a war guild and paying the war guild to that family for Ecgtheow. So essentially, Hrothgar saved Ecgtheow's life. Okay. So Hrothgar pays the war guild for Ecgtheow, saving Ecgtheow's life. So yes, Beowulf does go to Denmark to kill Grendel because he wants the glory of killing this monster that no one's been able to kill for 12 years. But I think a secondary reason, in my opinion, is that he's also paying Hrothgar back for what Hrothgar did for his father all those years ago. Right? I'm sure he felt slightly indebted to Hrothgar for saving his father's life. And I think this is a way for him helping Hrothgar out and paying him back for that. So that's what that paragraph was about, is describing the history between Hrothgar and Beowulf's father, Ecgtheow. It bothers me to have to burden anyone with all the grief Grendel has caused and the havoc he has wreaked upon us and Herit, our humiliations. My household guard are on the wane. Fate sweeps them away into Grendel's clutches. but God can easily halt these raids and harrowing attacks. Time and again, when the goblets passed and the seasoned fighters got flushed with beer, they would pledge themselves to protect Herod and wait for Grendel with whetted swords. But when dawn broke and the day crept in over each empty, blood-spattered bench, the floor of the mead hall where they had feasted would be slick with slaughter. And so they died, faithful retainers, and my following dwindled. Now take your place at the table, relish the triumph of heroes to your heart's content. Then a beach was cleared in that banquet hall, so the gates could have room to be together, and the party sat, proud in their bearing, strong and stalwart. An attendant stood by with a decorated pitcher, pouring bright helpings of mead. And the minstrel sang, filling Herod with his head-clearing voice, gladdening the great rally of Geats and Danes. For where he crouched at the king's feet, Unferth, a son of Ecglafs, spoke contrary words. So here we have a new character. Okay, he is a Dane, and his name is Unferth. What a great name. Beowulf's coming, his sea-braving, made him sick with envy. He could not brook or abide the fact that anyone else alive under heaven might enjoy greater regard than he did. So this Dane named Unferth is jealous of Beowulf and everything that Beowulf has accomplished. So he's going to get back at him, right? And sees whenever you're jealous of someone, sometimes you say mean words to them to belittle them, and that's what Unferth is going to do here to Beowulf. Side note, though, you should not do that to anyone. Are you the Beowulf who took on Brecca in a swimming match on the open sea, risking the water just to prove you could win? It was sheer vanity that made you venture out on the main deep, and no matter who tried, friend or foe, to deflect the pair of you, neither would back down. The sea test obsessed you. You waded in, embracing water, taking its measure, mastering currents, riding on the swell. The ocean-swayed winter went wild in the waves, but you vied for 7 nights, and then he outswam you, came ashore the stronger contender. He was cast up safe and sound one morning among the Hetharemes, then made his way to where he belonged in Bronding country, home again, sure of his ground and strong room and bawn. So Brecca made good his boast upon you and is proved right. No matter, therefore, how you may have fared in every bout and battle until now. This time you'll be worsted. No one has ever outlasted an entire night against Grendel. Unferth starts laughing at Beowulf, and he's like, aren't you the Beowulf who lost a swimming match against Brecca? Side note, it does not matter who Brecca is. He's just a guy. Unferth says, you couldn't even win a swimming contest against Brecca. How on earth do you think you're going to defeat Grendel, who no one has defeated in 12 years? Obviously, Beowulf, being Beowulf, is not just going to sit by and let this guy say this to him. Let's look at Beowulf's response. Beowulf, Ecgtheow's son, replied, well, friend Unferth, you have had your say about Brecca and me, but it was mostly beer that was doing the talking. The truth is this. In other words, Beowulf says, Unferth, you're drunk. Sit down. I'm going to tell you how it really went. When the going was heavy in those high waves, I was the strongest swimmer of all. We'd been children together, and we grew up daring ourselves to outdo each other, boasting and urging each other to risk our lives on the sea. And so it turned out. Each of us swam holding a sword, a naked, hard-proofed blade for protection against the whale beasts. But Brecca could never move out farther or faster from me than I could manage to move from him. Shoulder to shoulder, we struggled on for 5 nights, until the long flow and pitch of the waves, the perishing cold, night falling and winds from the north drove us apart. The deep boiled up, and its wallowing sent sea Bruce wild. My armor helped me to hold out. My hard-ringed chainmail, hand-forged and linked, a fine, close-fitting filigree of gold, kept me safe when some ocean creature pulled me to the bottom. Pinioned fast and swathed in its grip, I was granted one final chance. My sword plunged and the ordeal was over. Through my own hands, the fury of battle had finished off a sea beast. Beowulf tells Unferth, yeah, I was in a swimming contest against Brecca. Okay, this 7-day contest, and for 5 days we were neck and neck swimming. But on that 5th day, I got pulled under the water by a sea monster, and I ended up killing it with my sword. Okay, pretty impressive reason why he falls behind Brecca. But wait, there's more. Time and again, foul things attacked me, lurking and stalking, but I lashed out, gave as good as I got with my sword. My flesh was not for feasting on. There would be no monsters gnawing and gloating over their banquet to the bottom of the sea. Instead, in the morning, mangled and sleeping the sleep of the sword, they slopped and floated like the ocean's leavings. From now on, sailors would be safe. The deep sea raids were over for good. Light came from the east, bright guarantee of God, and the waves went quiet. I could see headlands and buffeted cliffs. Often, for undaunted courage, fate spares the man it has not already marked. However it occurred, my sword had killed 9 sea monsters. Such night dangers and hard ordeals I have never heard of, nor of a man more desolate in surging waves. But worn out as I was, I survived, came through with my life. The ocean lifted and laid me ashore. I landed safe on the coast of Finland. Beowulf says, I didn't just kill 1 sea monster. Okay, I killed 9 sea monsters. So yeah, I did lose to Brecca, but I killed 9 sea monsters, therefore making all of the sea safe for sailors from there on out. Kind of beats winning a swimming contest, Unferth. But he's not done with Unferth yet. Now, I cannot recall any fight you entered, Unferth, that bears comparison. Burn. I don't boast when I say that neither you nor Brecca were ever much celebrated for swordsmanship or for facing danger on the field of battle. You killed your own kith and kin, aka family. So for all your cleverness and quick tongue, you will suffer damnation in the depths of hell. Wow. So he just gets on Unferth and he's like, you have never done anything close to what I have accomplished, Unferth. In fact, you have killed your own family member before. Which again, family is super important. So to have the reputation as a family killer, not great. So Beowulf really deals Unferth a blow there by bringing that up. The fact is, Unferth, if you were truly as keen or courageous as you claim to be, Grendel would never have got away with such unchecked atrocity, attacks on your king, havoc and heret and horrors everywhere. But he knows he need never be in dread of your blade, making a mizzle of his blood or a vengeance arriving ever from this quarter. From the victory shieldings, the shoulderers of the spear, he knows he can trample down you Danes to his heart's content, humiliate and murder without fear of reprisal. But he will find me different. I will show him how gates shape to kill in the heat of battle. Then whoever wants to may go bravely to mead, when morning light, scarfed in sun-dazzle, shines forth from the south and brings another daybreak to the world. Okay, so there Beowulf really puts Unferth in his place, says you have done nothing about Grendel for these 12 years, so you need to sit down and let me do my job. Okay, I'm here to help y'all out. And that is the summary and reading for that part of Beowulf.